Hey guys, it's Matt Wenning at WenningStrength.com, and today we got a question off of Patreon that I think needed answer to the masses on YouTube. And the question is what's RPE and why or when should you use it? So let's get to it. All right, so a lot of people, especially at the higher level, talk about how to use percentage-based training. Now, what's percentage-based training? That means you base it off of your maximum 1RM, and you use a percentage based on that workout that day. So say if my max is a 300-pound bench and I want to use 80%, then I take 300 times 0.8, and that gives me my work weight. Pretty simple. And that's why a lot of people use it. Percentage-based training is very easy to understand. The mathematics are easy to calculate, and it gives you an idea of where your intensity should be at all times. There's a catch. So the first thing is that RPE is rate of perceived exertion. Now this rate of perceived exertion has variability based on the day, which could be good. Now the reason it's good is because if you read a lot of high-level manuals, especially from the Soviet bloc where they had thousands of athletes to study and test this on, what you'll find is that a lot of the top researchers started to understand that you had a strength fluctuation of about 10% per day. This means that if you're a 1,000-pound squatter, you could be a 900-pound squatter in 3 or 4 days, or you could be a 1,000-pound squatter. That's a pretty big variation. So the point is that if you've hit 1,000 pounds on the squat, but you're not capable of it that day, is the percentage-based training really a good idea? The answer, in my opinion, is no. It's too much neurological fatigue. Now, RPE, or rate of perceived exertion, is usually based between 1 and 10. So 10 being the hardest thing you've ever fucking done, and 1 being the easiest thing, like walking around the block. The point is that there's a lot of stuff in the middle, and the reason that people don't want to use RPE is because there's too much variability to it. Now, as a beginner, I get the fact that you might need to base things off of percentages. But the only reason I would base things off of percentages as a beginner is because you don't know your true strength yet. Okay, so the stronger and stronger you get, I would say at the higher intermediate to advanced levels, you're going to have to switch to an RPE range. Why? Because you have a 10% variation. Now, there's a handful of reasons that this 10% variation comes along. 1, it comes along due to active daily stress. For most of us, being a professional powerlifter is not going to keep the lights on. 1, 2, you're not going to make a lot of money. So the point is, you're probably working another job, and some people work construction, manual labor. They have a high-stress desk job. The point is that takes a lot of energy and time away from your training, which is not avoidable. But if you have an RPE scale, you can adjust it. Maybe a 9 RPE one day is not a 9 RPE the next, and that's okay. A lot of reasons that the people don't like that is because they don't like fluctuation. They don't like to feel like they're weaker than they were yesterday. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you're not able to kind of mentally take that, you're not going to be a very good lifter. Meaning that a lot of times when I go to a meet, where I went to a meet, I didn't care how I felt that day. I was forcing my body to do whatever it took to win or to break a record. You can't train like that constantly. Meaning that, here's what I would do. If you guys are competitors, I would use a percentage-based training 15 weeks or earlier out from a competition. This forces you to maintain a certain percentage of where you need to be and make sure that you taper correctly. But that leaves 35 plus weeks a year in order for you to work on an RPE scale. Now, what I like about the RPE scale is now at almost 42 years old and been training for many, many years, I can feel when my body said, hey, that's enough, we're gonna heal from this and we're gonna be okay in 3 days. The RPE scale is great because it has fluctuation. A lot of times the reason online coaches and other people on YouTube and stuff don't like using RPE scales is because you have to think more and the person has to be a little bit more responsible for their numbers. But as I said before, you have a 10% variation from day to day. Now, some other things that cause this 10% variation is hydration. So if you have low salt or it's super hot out, etc., and you're losing water, you're losing sodium or potassium, you're going to start having a problem with being at your maximum best. So the point is that if you don't have a fluctuating scale like RPE, you're going to have a huge issue with being able to sustain your training. So what I say is use RPE scale, practice with it, especially in the off season. And if you're a recreational lifter, you should be using RPE anyway, because RPE scale is going to be one of your biggest tools in order for adjustability from stress and all kinds of other shit. So for a lot of you guys that have kids and all this other stuff, you're going to need to use an RPE scale because you're not going to have, a solid 8-10 hours of sleep if you have a toddler, right? You're not going to have a solid 8 to 10 hours of sleep or proper nutrition if you got 5 kids and a stay-at-home, wife that's bitching at you all the time. The point is that there's all these variables, okay? So that's why you have to use RPE scale, because guess what? Training is variation. Training is adaptability. But what training really is consistency. So even though you may not be as strong as you were yesterday or the week before because of RPE scale, because of all these stress factors, what you're going to start to find is that if you consistently make it into the gym all the time, even if it's not a PR every time you come in, over the course of 2, 4, 5 years, you're going to be way better than basing stuff off of percentages, getting psychologically burned out, then taking 2 to 4 months of training off a year because you just don't want to do it anymore because you fried yourself, and then trying to restart yourself from the ground up. So basically, you're always building yourself back up from the bottom versus sustaining a certain ability. So no matter how I feel, I train, but I base my stuff off of RPE. So I hope this helps you guys out a little bit, understanding that rate of perceived exertion is the superior way to train based on the fact that it can fluctuate due to your energy level and what you have that day. Basing stuff off of percentages is great, but it's hard to keep your PR all the time at a certain level and basing your percentages off that level. Case in point, when I benched 611, I was basing all of my training in percentages off of 585. I found that if I cut my training back 20 pounds off of my max on the bench press, that I was hitting every number I could hit, I wasn't overtraining, and I wasn't dropping. So if you don't want to switch to the RPE because you're scared and you don't want to learn how to adjust it yourself, I get it. I was there at one time. Drop your weights down in training 20, maybe let's say 5, 8, maybe 10% lower on the weights that you train with, and then base your percentages off of that weight and find out what happens. You're going to get better. So the point is, RPE scale is totally usable, totally needed, and percentages have their advantages as well. But at the end of the day, I find that most people that train in percentages have lengthy off seasons and tend to retire sooner. So I hope this helps. If you guys need any more help, hop on the website, go on to wenningstrength.com, look at our online coaching, or some more of this is explained in a more vast variety on the manual. So see you guys there.